Back in 2013, I had this idea to tell the stories of some of history's greatest black sheep games. These were, of course, the sequels or spin-offs that didn't quite fit in with the rest of the franchise family, like Capcom's completely forgotten 8-bit Street Fighter game, or the Nintendo racing game that ended up getting sued by Pixar. The result was 5 episodes of The Black Sheep, which ran in the summer of 2013. You have to understand that these were some of the earliest videos that I'd ever made, years before we would start posting video reviews, or talking about classic magazines, or watching Lorne cover the news. Hell, I don't even think Lorne was born yet. But despite being old, I think that the 5 episodes actually hold up and represent a lot of what I wanted to do with Defunct Games all of those years ago. And the truth is, it's the kind of video essay that I still want to make. I bring all this up because I'm excited to announce that for the first time in 8 years, I'm finally working on new episodes of The Black Sheep that'll debut later this year. That's right, we're going to be looking at a whole new batch of Outcast games, including recent releases and classic misfires. And best of all, you can help me out by nominating games for future episodes. Before we get to that, I first want to create a supercut of the entire first season, featuring all 5 episodes. And considering that I barely had 200 subscribers back when I first posted them, I'm guessing that most of you haven't seen these videos. What you need to remember is that these videos are very old. I was still toying around with video editing, and the equipment I was using back then pales in comparison to what I have today. So with that in mind, I think that you're going to enjoy this first season of The Black Sheep.
Every family has one. The Black Sheep. It's the one member that doesn't quite fit in. That guy that never gets an invitation to the family reunion. Join me as I explore some of video gaming's most notorious outcasts. This is The Black Sheep. By 1992, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were everywhere. There were turtle comics, toys, movies, and even a musical.
When there's music inside of you, someday you know that it's got to come through. That's why we're here, we're telling you true, we're coming out of our shells.
Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Raphael were also making the rounds in the arcades and on your favorite video game systems. After already conquering the Nintendo Entertainment System, Game Boy, and Super Nintendo, it was time for Konami to unveil the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game for the Sega Genesis. The game was called the Hyperstone Heist, and chances are you haven't heard of it. While everybody remembers the Turtles in Time, you'd be hard-pressed to find a single person that can explain what the Hyperstone is. Just for the record, the Hyperstone is the treasure from Dimension X that will allow Shredder to take over the world. Now at least one person knows. I'm counting on you to have children and pass that information along. Or just show them this video in a few years. That way I get at least 2 hits. Anyway, the Hyperstone Heist basically recycles stages from the first 2 arcade games, giving players a truly disjointed experience. See this stage? It looks almost exactly like the one found in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. And this one, it's lifted directly from Turtles in Time. Even the opening cinemas are practically identical. This Genesis game crosses the line from disappointing to flat-out offensive when you play Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo. Released just a few weeks before the Hyperstone Heist, Turtles in Time boasts twice the amount of levels, more modes, better graphics, and brand new worlds to explore. These days, there's nobody around to tell the story of the Hyperstone Heist. History, we're doomed to repeat. But maybe you can do something and check out this forgotten Genesis game. On second thought, don't bother. Just tell everybody you did. Don't worry, your secret's safe with me. Quick, name me a racing game made by Nintendo. No, not Mario Kart, or F-Zero, or Mario Kart 64, or Double... Look, I see what you're doing here. You're just listing off Mario Kart games because you can't think of any other racing games made by Nintendo. I get it, it's a common mistake. After all, it's not like Nintendo has a large stable of full classic racing games. I mean, besides Rad Racer and Mach Rider and RC Pro-Am. If we're going to talk about Nintendo's forgotten racing games, then look no further than Uniracers for the Super Nintendo.
It's like single wheel boarding. Down the track, double roll, fly!
How did you find the two-player action?
Man, I was calling, standing on the bro. With ice snack. Flip City. Ace of the Drinks time. Clue action, triple flip, bacon in the pan.
Well, it appears then to be totally slamming.
In a world full of 3D racing games powered by Mode 7, Uniracers bucked the trend and went 2D. There aren't even real people to race with, just a set of multicolored unicycles. At the time, both critics and consumers were baffled by Uniracers. Even now, the game's lackadaisical structure is positively bewildering. There are plenty of courses, but they all start to bleed together after a while. Gamers that stuck with it were met with a rewarding and surprisingly deep racing experience. But with no whimsical characters or fancy graphics, most people simply ignored it. And that's when the lawsuit hit. Soon after release, the developers were sued by Pixar. The animation studio claimed the DMA design had stolen the unicycle. Before long, production was halted and Uniracers was never heard from again. To this day, Nintendo won't even talk about it, which is all the more reason for you to dig it up and discover this one-of-a-kind racing game. Or you could always side with the stuffy shirts over at Pixar. The year is 1990 and all hell is about to break loose. The Supreme Court allowed flag burnings, Macaulay Culkin successfully thwarted a home invasion, and Phil Collins resurrected his music career by guilt-shaming everybody into thinking twice, because it's just another day for you, you and me in paradise. But 1990 wasn't just the year that brought us The Simpsons, Entertainment Weekly, Milli Vanilli, and the NC-17 rating. It was also the year that Street Fighter's Black Sheep was released. To find the one Street Fighter game that Capcom is too afraid to mention, we have to go back to a time before Street Fighter 2. It's a time before any old TV star could play Chun-Li. A time before spinning pile drivers and sonic booms.
Sonic Boom!
Yes, I said that. Forget Street Fighter 3, or even Street Fighter the movie The Game. The real black sheep of this family is Street Fighter 2010, The Final Fight. Now, before you tell me that this late-generation NES game isn't a true Street Fighter installment, let's quickly do the math. It stars Ken. Okay, he's just a cyborg now, but it's the future and we can go with it. Occasionally, Ken has to fight. One-on-one style. Plus, it has the name Street Fighter right in the title. When we do the math, I think you know what we get. Now that we've established that your criticism of my airtight logic is nonsense, I can go about explaining how this is one of the very few Street Fighter games that Capcom has yet to re-release. Even historically confusing installments like Fighting Street and Special Champion Edition have found their way on modern game consoles. And it's not like Capcom hasn't had plenty of opportunities to re-release this 8-bit action game. Capcom could have easily snuck Street Fighter 2010 onto the Virtual Console or Capcom Classic Mega Mix for the Game Boy Advance. This would have fit in perfectly next to Mighty Final Fight or the bad version of Strider. The ultimate betrayal came when Street Fighter 2010 couldn't even get re-released in the 52 weeks that made up 2010. That's when you know that you're not welcome to the party. Street Fighter 2010, The Final Fight...
Toasty!
Come on, that's not even the right franchise. Anyway, Street Fighter 2010 The Final Fight may not be a very good fighting game by today's standards, but it's time for Capcom to officially recognize this 8-bit entry as part of the franchise. And say what you will about Cyborg Ken's opponents, at least none of them are struggling reggae singers. By 2008, Nintendo had somehow managed to convince the entire world that their Wii was the next generation game system to own. Despite its low-res graphics, terrible online infrastructure, and dangerous controller, the Wii was a massive hit. By targeting your grandmother, Nintendo is able to look past the hardcore gamer and capture a segment of the market that had otherwise been untapped. A lot of the success can be linked back to Wii Sports, the addictive minigame collection that taught the entire world how to use imprecise motion controls. Wii Sports was quickly followed by Wii Fit, featuring one of Nintendo's most successful accessories. And then we have Wii Play, one of the best-selling games of all time. Despite the unimaginative name, the Wii series looked to be unstoppable. And that's when Nintendo introduced the world to Wii Music, the embarrassing next step in the Wii series. Here we have Shigeru Miyamoto doing his best to convince a silent E3 audience that they should give up Guitar Hero and Rock Band. Wii Music lets you play guitar, as well as drums, saxophone, violin, and even piano, all without having to worry about hitting the right notes or having any actual skill. So how does it work? Well, let's let Miyamoto and his translator set up a best-case scenario for Wii Music.
But since we have everyone here this morning, I thought it might be nice if we played a song for you.
6人の編成バンドなんですが、4人で演奏ができます。
Now, the bands have 6 different parts, but you play with up to 4 players simultaneously.
Don't these people look like they're having fun? Hey look, that guy's pretending to blow into the Wii remote. Hey, and so is that guy. Don't forget to smile, Ravi. Now this is a party. Not a Wii party, that's still a couple of years off. But just look at the excitement in this room. I'm sure the internet will agree.
Many of you on the internet said I was pretty bad.
Oh, well maybe that's because the internet noticed that there were 5 people playing a 4-player game. See for yourself. We have Shiggy playing the cowbell, Denise on the marimba, we have 2 guys on horns, and our good friend Ravi over there on drums. How many players does this game support anyway?
Now, the bands have 6 different parts, but you play with up to 4 players simultaneously.
Yeah, that's what I thought. With only 3 million units sold worldwide, I doubt we'll ever hear from Wii Music again. But hey, at least Ravi was able to get good at playing his fake invisible drum kit.
In fact, Ravi only started practicing just yesterday, and as you can see, he's already gotten quite good.
Okay, there's one thing we know for sure. This is the first Shinobi, and this is obviously Shinobi 3. I don't think any of that is in dispute. But what about Shinobi 2? Well, that's a whole other matter entirely. Some people argue that the true Shinobi sequel is Shadow Dancer, the arcade follow-up that added one of those Call of Duty dogs to the cast. Others dismiss the claim entirely, instead choosing to believe that The Revenge of Shinobi is the true sequel. They make a good argument, as it does have Shinobi right in the title, but here's the thing. Both sides have it wrong. Neither of these action games is the true sequel to Shinobi. The real sequel is none other than the Cyber Shinobi, which sees Joe Musashi's grandson fighting technologically enhanced ninjas in the far-flung future of 2XXX. And how do I know that the Cyber Shinobi is the true sequel? Because of the 3 contenders, it's the only one that actually claims to be Shinobi Part 2. But despite being the real sequel, Joe and his cyber posse get no respect. It's hard to be a ninja in the future, what with all of the drones flying about, the NSA spying program, and Obamacare. Thankfully, Joe has learned a new technique. One touch of his sword will instantly burn his foes, literally turning them into ashes. He'll need every advantage he can get when battling futuristic vehicles like a bulldozer, helicopter, submarine, and this bear. Of course, the real reason Sega refuses to acknowledge this sequel is because it spoils the ending of Shinobi 3 and all future Joe Musashi adventures. This Master System game suggests that Joe lived long enough to father at least one child, which means I don't even need to bother playing Shinobi 3. Think for nothing, Sega. These days, you're better off just playing Revenge of Shinobi or Shadow Dancer, 2 far superior Shinobi sequels. But for Joe Musashi's honor, it's time for Sega to invite the Cyber Ninja back to the party. No, not that Joe Musashi, the other one, the future one. Don't forget it, you know what I mean.
Hey, thanks for binge watching the entire first season of The Black Sheep. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we're going to be bringing it back for Season 2 later this year. In fact, I'm working on new episodes right this second. Now, here's the question I have for you. What games should we cover in The Black Sheep Season 2? I mean, I may be hard at work on new episodes, but this season still needs more games, both good and bad. Who knows, maybe your suggestion will show up in Season 2. Come on, how cool would that be? Alright, in other news, we'll be back tomorrow with an adventurous new Game Over episode, followed by reviews of the Chameleon, Super Destronaut DX2, and so much more. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.